Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about making money as an art photographer. So I'm Daniel Norton, photographer here in New York. I make videos like this one. It can be about business. I also make them about philosophy and gear and technique. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe and we'll get to it. So as I mentioned a few videos back, I'm going to kind of run, I did like loose categories of photography to get an idea of kind of where I would put things, give you guys an idea of where I would put things as we're looking at different types. And I ask people questions about what they want to know more about. Being primarily a commercial photographer myself, that's obviously my strengths, and I know the most there. But I've known a lot of photographers. I've been in the business a long time, so I feel that I can speak on many different areas. This one is probably the one that I've done the least of, though. But I also got a lot of questions about it, so I thought I'll give you what I've got, and you can run from there. And I think it'll be at least a good starting point for you. So if you are doing photography for the art of it now, and again, I talked about this in that other video. Essentially, what I mean by that is you are producing photography for the sole purpose of art, meaning that either it's going to the idea in your head is it's going to be in some kind of a book or a gallery show or hang in a museum. Maybe eventually they're gonna hang these pictures in people's homes. Not so much as obviously people hang their portraits in their homes, but it could be any kind of art. Usually the person that you're selling it to is not in the photo, if there's people in it at all. It's more about an expression of form, or maybe you're making some kind of statement. So these are, in some ways, maybe the reason why a lot of people get into photography. Maybe not so much of the people that are watching these videos all the time, because I think people that watch these a lot are more interested in maybe trying to get a business out of it. But just anybody who likes to just walk around, whether it be with their phone or with a camera, and they just look for things that are really beautiful to them. Maybe it's details of things. Maybe it's sunsets, whatever it might be. They're photographing them with the intention of they're going to put them up on their wall or put them in a background on the computer or whatever. They want people to look at them and enjoy them. They might just put them on Instagram, right, or Facebook or Tumblr or any of these places where you might display your photos to get people to see them so they can be inspired by them and enjoy your art. Now, when you go from that stage to making money, that's the tricky part, right? So, but I'm going to start there first because I think maybe some people aren't even there in a sense, If you know that you're producing photography for art that you plan on selling or displaying or whatever, the thing is with artists, it comes down to, for the most part, people are going to want to know who you are, and that will help them to want your art. I know it sounds bad, but it is the way. This is the way it is in everything, right? The more known you are, the more likely people will seek out your art to pay for it. So an important part of being an art photographer is to get your name out there. Now you might be thinking, and we're going to talk about this, I live on Cape Cod. I'm from Massachusetts originally. I live on Cape Cod and I shoot, the boats or whatever. And I make prints and I sell them in the little tourist shops. Tourists come down, they're like, oh, I want a picture of a boat in Cape Cod. And they buy this and they hang on their wall, right? If you're that kind of photographer, right, you might be thinking, well, what do I care if people know who I am? It does matter because in order for the stores to want to put your pictures in there, in order for people to, be able to, let's say, recommend you to other, when people see that picture in somebody's place, they might be like, oh, I like that. Who did that? This is all about spreading your name, right? It's like you need to just get your work in front of the right people, which is what I say all the time. So we're going to kind of break down, I think, some different ways that we can do this depending on the style of photography that you do. And from there, we'll kind of get a little, as specific as I can, obviously. As usual, when I do these, I'll kind of just take a fictional person through like a process, right? So let's say, I think that was a pretty good idea. Let's say that you do, you're going to do like what I'll call landscape photos. Not necessarily like mountains and stuff. It could be, cityscapes, urban environments. It could be, like I said, maybe you live on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. So like you take pictures of the the people getting lobsters or whatever they do on Cape Cod, and the there's like I say, sunsets, sunrises, and seashells, and old buildings, and things that are reminiscent of the space. Like you document in a sense, but in an artistic way, the space around you, whatever that space may be. And maybe you travel too. I mean, I'm going to start local. Um, the first thing I mentioned is probably a good option for you if you're in a place that's touristy. Now, you may be someplace where nobody goes to, if you're just in, let's say, the town that I grew up in, right? That nobody went there to like go on vacation. I mean, maybe if you were related to somebody, but it's like there wasn't like tourist shops per se in the town that I grew up, so I could not do that. The way that you could do it, let's say, like I said, if you lived on like Cape Cod, where people went like for vacation, right? Like people had like summer homes there. People went there for renting cottages, and it was a vacation place. If you live in a place like that, then the obvious thing to do is to look for, and you make those kind of photos. So this could be maybe you live in Colorado, and you take pictures of the mountains and in the landscapes there, and people go to Colorado to see those things. So maybe they're going to want to buy your pictures. Um, the first thing you want to do is you want to look for the places that might sell those things, right? Um, if you have that available to you, that's super good. I mean, that's good. Now, if you are somebody who travels a lot to places that are highly photographic, that photogenic maybe, that have these shops, you could of course pick up business cards when you're there, and these kind of things. So you start making a relationship. It's not like you have to do this just locally, right? You could do it with places that you visit. I wouldn't recommend if you're just starting to just like go out look to do that first. I mean, but if you're already doing it, sorry, I lose my voice here, so we'll see how this goes. Then it's definitely worth it. But the idea is the most immediate source of income for you, if you make those kind of photos, is going to be somebody. I mean, this is almost like retail photography, except you're not the one selling it. It's going to be somebody who just wants those photos as whatever. They're not going to look at it as fine art. Don't be upset that it's going to hang in their bathroom. I mean, whatever. It's like it literally is just, oh cool. I went to this location. Here's a beautiful picture of it that I wouldn't be able to get myself. So if you produce those images, like I say, you want to look for the stores and stuff that do those. That's really the key here. If you produce, let's say, portraits of, let's say you do fine art stuff. You do fine art nudes, let's say, or flowers, or stuff like that. That stuff might be harder to sell in those types of spots, right? So you're gonna want to find places that have that. And to me, people don't buy those things as often, from a knickknack shop as they would buy it, let's say, at a gallery. So this is when you want to try to get into gallery shows. Now, to get into a gallery show is not going to be easy if nobody knows who you are. So again, it keeps coming back down to that. So one of the things that I would do, and I've talked about this before, that I never do this, that I never did it, is if that's your intention, then what you probably want to do is try to enter into group show, I guess that you might be call them competitions, where like a lot of people can submit, and the ones that the judges deem best are the ones that show. And what's great about the world is that these days is that most of these allow you to submit digitally, now. So it's like, used to be, before the internet and the way it is now, like when I was in college, for instance, if you wanted to submit to a show in Texas, you would need to literally make prints and send them to them. And if they did not show, they just threw them away. So it was like there was a lot more money invested there, plus whatever the entry fee is. So now that you can do it online, this can be a great way to just get yourself places. And the more places that you've been, the more people will want to show you, because that's just how it is. It's like, I've been in these 3 shows. People will be like, oh, you have been? Well, now I want to spend extra time looking at your work, because clearly there's something going on there if you've already been in 3 shows. So this is going to allow you to, number one, just get some name for yourself. Number 2, get kind of a resume of sorts. And number 3, allow you to meet the gallery owners on some level, even if it's virtually, right? So let's say that you submit to this show for a couple years in a row, and your picture always sells and it always does really well, and there's a lot of hype about it. That gallery owner might reach out to you and be like, hey, would you like to do a show? Or you could reach out to them and be like, hey, I have a body of work that I want to show. So this is going to, again, it's a process. It's like everything. It's a process. You're going to want to like chip at the doors to the people that are the ones that are going to help you get to the ultimate customer, which is, the person buying for their home. Another option if you live in a big city is to just print stuff yourself, and like I mentioned this before, like Union Square in New York, usually has people there's tables, whatever your local laws are. You can set up a table, you put your art out, and you just sell it direct to the public. Some people do this with their own work. Some people do it with other work. So if you are in a place that does it with other people's work, you could also approach one of these booths if you can't spend the time to do it yourself, right? Also, there's, especially I'm thinking now because it's like the summer. It's the summer, but I'm not outside because they're doing a lot of landscape work next door, so it's very loud. Well, it's not loud for me to sit out there. It's loud for a video. Let's talk about. Oh, right. There's fairs and all these other things. Flea markets and these things. These are all places where you can meet people that might sell your work, or that you could set up yourself to sell it, depending on how you want to do it. Right. The other thing is, if you do something very specific, you can also find ways to get your name and your images in front of people. Like, for instance, let's say that you photograph horses, right? And let's say that there is a society of people that, is for, they support, like, when let's say somebody moves and they can't take the horse with them, so it's like a stray horse, I don't know what you would call that. And these people go into, like, boarding these horses until they can find a better home for them. So you take beautiful pictures of horses. Maybe you donate some of your pictures to an auction that's for that charity. And again, now maybe you're not making any money from it, but somebody's buying your picture, even though they're buying it for that. Then they're hanging it in their house. And it's somebody who likes, horse pictures, which means their friends probably like horse pictures, which means that it will help get you in front of people. They'll be like, oh, where'd you get that from? Oh, well, there's a local photographer that makes those kind of images, right? This all kind of just keep building on itself, right? And if you notice, I've yet to mention things like Instagram, which I immediately mentioned in the commercial thing. And I do think that you need that. But what I will say is, finding somebody who's going to pay you on Instagram is probably going to be hard. I will say that you need to have your work there, though, because people are going to reach out for other reasons. That they're going to ask you to see more of your work. And that's just a great place to have it, because, again, it's just out there. Same thing with Tumblr, all these things, right? You want to have your images out there. People are going to steal them and use them as their desktop pictures, and they're going to use them for whatever. That's just the nature of the beast, right? What you're going for is the sale of the beautiful print for them to hang on their wall. You're not going to have to worry too much about somebody taking it and putting it as their iPhone background. If you try to sell those, I just think you're like nickel and diming people, and that's not going to be long term a very large income source. Maybe if you become famous and then you've got certain images that you really want to protect. But I would say that I wouldn't worry too much about policing Instagram and stuff. I feel like that's just a lot of work for very little gain to chase people down who are using it as their desktop picture or whatever. What you're really looking for is the people that are going to want to buy those prints, right? And possibly then commission you to create art, right? Maybe, as I mentioned, you've got this horse thing, because I know I'm going that direction, and you've donated a few prints to the auction, so it's raised some money. Then maybe somebody will come to you and be like, hey, I love the fine art style that you do with the horses. Maybe you could photograph my horses. Now you're like stretching into like a bit more of a retail photography area, but you're doing your art, right? And it's going to hang on somebody's wall. So it's kind of, that's why these areas cross a lot. It's a way to like bridge that, because just selling prints or just selling books might be difficult, especially at first. So all this said, I think this comes down to, as usual, getting your images in front of the people that will pay for them. Not everybody is going to pay for photography. Not everybody wants to pay for photography. Not everybody sees the value in it. And as much as that sucks, we have to know that and be okay with it, and know that there are people that will pay money for prints, and put ourselves in front of those people. And there's people that'll pay $5 on the street, and there's people that'll pay $100 in a gallery, or $500, or $1,000, or $10,000, whatever, depending on the image, right? So it really just comes down to that. So let me know. I don't know how many of you guys are art photographers or that actually do it and make money from it. Or I know there's a lot of people that want to do it, because I got tons of DMs. It's funny, I didn't get a lot of comments that said that, but I got tons of DMs asking me to do this one. So I figured I'd do this one first, because maybe this will drum up a bit more conversation and we can come back to it. because I think it is one of those things. Like in my experience of being much more of a commercial photographer, I have had a handful of gallery shows and I've sold some prints, as art, and it was more of a secondary thing for me. And I think that just like that's the case, it could be that case for people that do more art, where they could do this occasional secondary commercial or retail job based on the notoriety they get as an art photographer. In any case, go ahead and subscribe, guys, if you have not already. And I will see you next time.